Let's transition over and get some stuff started. Give a little hooty hoo.
Well, you want to woo-woo?
To everyone out there. I got a segment right now, guys. I watched a documentary over the weekend called Unacknowledged. It is a UFO documentary put out by Dr. Stephen Greer. He's done various talks about UFOs and super secret space programs by Lockheed Martin or Raytheon. And he's been all over the internet. We've actually played some clips from him in the past on this very show.
He's big in the UFO community.
Huge. In fact, I would say probably the biggest at this point. He's a former emergency room doctor. He's got some brains on him. He's got some smarts, and he like in the 90s, he just threw himself into the UFO community and became kind of like, it seems like the point where people would just send him documents and often make FOIA requests, and he would somehow be this point of contact where he would just collect all this stuff and then give presentations on what he has discovered. And I have some clips from this documentary if you guys would want to hear. Sure.
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
I'm not really giving you a choice, you know. I'm kind of
Has
giving.
he done any research into alien penises?
We might have some speculation about that in some further clips, but I'll play this intro clip just to kind of set it up. This is about a minute long, just to set up this brand new documentary, Unacknowledged. You can get it on Amazon Prime, order it for like, I think $12. And it is a great movie to show people if you want them to kind of get more interested in this strange phenomenon. It presents a lot of good information. Here is the intro.
I'm going to introduce a man who says there are more things between heaven and hell than any of us have accepted. And I have the witnesses and the documents to prove it. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Stephen Greer.
On May 9th, 2001, 20 military, government, and corporate witnesses held a press conference in Washington, D.C.
And these are folks who have been involved in so-called black budget or covert unacknowledged projects.
That's
They
Greer.
described a decades-long conspiracy to cover up extraterrestrial visitation to Earth.
These unacknowledged special access projects are taking in at least $40 to $80 billion per year.
And the study of extraterrestrial technology in covert military programs.
And they are sitting on technologies that can change the world forever.
This technology would liberate Earth from fossil fuels, environmental devastation, and poverty in a single generation.
And in some previous episodes that we've done, we talked about some free energy. We've talked about the UFO phenomenon ad nauseum, pretty much at this point. But it's also a very interesting phenomenon because it's where paranormal and political conspiracies combined, because you have this weird aerial phenomenon, which is possibly extraterrestrial. And if you believe the stories of Roswell, well, this crashed UFO technology that maybe got integrated into our society through various corporations. And if there is this much evidence, as Dr. Greer is suggesting, then where's the scientific community? Where are they? Why, if there's this plethora of evidence, where the fuck is everybody to say, yeah, this is real?
I don't think the scientific community really cares about evidence. At least the ones you hear about as far as global warming is concerned.
There is some interesting statements around that. Yes, Joe. I mean, you can go one way or the other, but yeah, sometimes scientists they don't care because it really depends on who is funding them. And this next clip kind of speaks to Carl Sagan and what happened with Carl Sagan, because he was on board with being kind of open to this phenomenon, and then something kind of happened to him.
Never is there any compelling physical evidence.
The question is, who are people like Carl Sagan? And before him, Professor Donald Menzel. It turns out that Sagan, in his early career, actually spoke and wrote about UFOs in a way that was affirmative, that it was legitimate. After he was threatened by the intelligence community and blackmailed, he then began to debunk the issue. Skepticism is very healthy, and I'm a big skeptic about more than 90% of the information out there on the subject, which the public needs to be skeptical. However, skepticism is not just blindly denying everything that's legitimate. For example, we have 3,500 cases where extraterrestrial vehicles have landed and left physical traces. We have 4,000 cases where they have been tracked on radar and seen by pilots. We have an enormous amount of photo and video evidence and physical evidence. And in our last project, brought out an actual body that is most likely not of human origin. So the question becomes, what is the metric for the evidence? Well, the evidence is actually overwhelming. There's more evidence for UFOs than there are for black holes, most of the theories in astrophysics, most of the evidence for most of the medicines you take. I'm speaking now as a trauma doctor. And yet, we have this blockage in the mainstream media and scientific establishment saying, where is the evidence?
So, very interesting. He kind of brings up what you kind of brought up, Joe, is, I guess you can form any kind of evidence you want around any kind of system of belief that you want, as long as you got enough scientists around you to debunk it or to prop up any kind of thought.
Or you just change the data.
You can just change the data.
I'm looking at the Carl Sagan thing. It's really hard to find any evidence of him speaking in the affirmative for UFOs and aliens.
Yeah, I don't know. I have to take the word of Dr. Greer on this, and I will say the movie is very well put together. It is very professionally done. It's very, easy to watch and digest. It's very quick. It goes through a lot of information, and I'm only playing like 1 minute clip here, 1 minute clips at a time here. There's a lot more information, goes a lot deeper, and I can't recommend it enough, especially if you are a fan of UFOs and you kind of want to show it to somebody who's maybe on the fence a little bit. Show them this. There's plenty of documents in here that would at least give them pause to say, holy shit, there's something else going on here. Definitely something else going on. And, throughout the entire movie, Greer's like flashing up these documents that have been released by either the CIA or FOIA requests or people that have leaked them documents. And he's like, here it is. Take a look. And some of it's kind of hard to deny, especially when you see people in this documentary speaking so passionately about the subject. It's hard not to believe them. I know that's not a good metric to believe somebody because they speak passionately about a subject, but for me, it was like, I'll believe them. Why not? Why the hell not? You talk loud enough, I'm going to believe you.
I found that preacher, the drunk preacher down at the corner. He's pretty passionate. It's hard to not believe him.
Exactly. I'm on board.
I'll follow this guy into battle.
Yep.
I found stuff on Carl Sagan.
Oh, you did?
So this is an interview from somebody for Project Camelot. We come across this stuff when you look at conspiracy stuff. Project Camelot does a lot of this stuff. But here's supposedly some friend of Carl Sagan's, and here's what he claims in this interview. It was very disappointing to me because not only was Carl wrong, he also fudged data. He published a picture of the face in Parade magazine, the Mars face. Mm-hmm. A popular article saying that the face was just a natural formation, but he doctored the picture to make it look like a face.
That's weird. Why would you doctor it to make it look more like a face and then write it off?
Yeah. Or wait, was tampered with by Sagan before being released to the public. Yeah. So that's that one. And then O'Leary also went on record and stated, I began to realize just directly from the scientific point of view, not only hearsay, that this man was colluding with NASA, this man being Carl Sagan, that there might be more to this than before. Carl was on a committee with a number of notable people. There was a report issued by the Brookings Institution in 1961, and that's about when I knew Carl. During those years, the 60s mostly was when I worked closely with them, that he and this other group said, well, if any ETs ever showed up on Earth, that has to be covered up. That's the only way we're going to be able to manage this, because if we can't, then it would be too much of a culture shock.
Huh. Well, I have a clip here. I'm probably not going to play it. This is a bit of a longer one, but it goes. There's a big, not a big segment, but a segment in here about Marilyn Monroe, JFK, and how Marilyn Monroe may have been kind of rubbed out for possibly knowing too much about the UFO phenomenon, because she was not only sleeping with JFK but also RFK. She was fucking both the brothers, and she was getting all this information. She didn't like the
Eskimo Bros.
Yeah, she didn't like the way she was being treated by both of them. So she was supposedly going to have a big press conference and expose all this stuff, and so they killed her. But I do have a clip here about something that's going on right now, and something we talked about for quite a while, which is the CIA in the media, and how you can kind of see the entire media get on board with a narrative, and they just kind of run it into the ground. And this clip from Unacknowledged speaks to that.
And this officially was released by the CIA, talking about how they have people embedded in all the major media to change, alter, and affect stories to their benefit.
You are fake news.
So every news agency, every television, radio station in the Albuquerque or Santa Fe area had our snitches in there. So we knew, and we paid them. We paid them good money. One of the reasons you get the people is you pay them, and that was controversial. That was somewhat controversial.
Do you know of national media that have had?
Oh, yes, yeah. I'm not going to name them.
We now have relationship with reporters from every underlined major wire service, newspaper, news weekly, and television network in the nation. In many instances, we have persuaded reporters to postpone, change, hold, or even scrap stories that could have adversely affected national security interests or jeopardized our sources and methods. And it goes on to then say that they have the same within academic circles.
There's a finding that the Pike Committee made that they had verified 42 full-time Central Intelligence Agency paid employees that were inserted inside the major national news media centers.
Oh, yeah.
And most of them ended up being the so-called national security reporters.
There you go. So why does anybody believe anything that's coming out of mainstream media? We've known this for years. You have Project Mockingbird. You have all this kind of stuff. And so why? I just don't get it. Maybe it's just easier to digest and accept it than have to really think about it, I guess. It's easier to go on with your life and day. What did you send in the chat there? You got some Sagan stuff you put in the chat there, Joe?
Yeah, it's just for you guys looking at later, basically. I mean, I sent the page that I was reading from with the interview, and then another thing, which is probably Carl Sagan talking about how aliens and UFOs are not real or whatever. But I don't know what Sagan said about all that stuff. I loved Sagan's stuff. I used to watch
Cosmos.
The Universe?
Yeah,
Cosmos? Yeah.
I liked it too.
It was good.
Yeah, I don't really have anything against him because I don't know enough about his stance one way or the other. And I should state up front that I'm not being paid by this by Dr. Stephen Greer to talk about his movie. This is not an advertisement.
All right.
This is just this is what I watch. This is what I did on Saturday night. I just sat around and watched stuff about UFOs. So I do have a few more clips that I will play for you. What's that, Jeff?
Said keep on going.
Keep on going. This next clip is about Lockheed Martin and Ben Rich, the former CEO of Lockheed Martin. And he's an interesting guy, and he had a lot of interesting things to say.
We have things flying in the Nevada desert that are 50 years beyond what you could comprehend. If you've seen it on Star Wars or Star Trek, we've been there, done that, or decided it wasn't worth the effort. So that's coming from Ben Rich. Ben Rich headed the Skunk Works between 1975 and 1991. This is the original letter from Ben Rich on Lockheed Advanced Aeronautics Company letterhead. I am a believer, and so is Kelly Johnson. And here it says, Dear Ben, there are two categories. A, man-made UFOs. B, extraterrestrial UFOs. Dear John, yes, I'm a believer in both categories. I feel everything is possible. Many of our man-made UFOs were unfunded opportunities. In both categories, there are lots of kooks and charlatans. Be cautious, Ben Rich.
We now have the technology to take ET home. Ben Rich, CEO, Lockheed Skunk Works.
It is being covered up, but probably not for the reasons you might think.
Within the intelligence communities, they have something called ace-in-the-hole technologies.
So secret they didn't even talk about it.
November 12th of 1988 was their dog and pony show, a classified military exhibit at Norton Air Force Base.
And then off in a separate section of the hangar behind a curtain, which was opened up once everyone had gathered, were 3 of these so-called alien reproduction vehicles, or ARVs. The craft itself was hovering off the floor with no landing gear underneath it, nothing supporting it from above. To see something, travel across 12 miles of airspace in under a second and a half, make a couple of right-angle turns, and not make a supersonic shockwave of any kind, no sonic boom, which I've personally witnessed on a number of occasions. I mean, it changes your whole perspective.
There were some very good folks, like Secretary Forrestal.
There you go. So you got some pretty interesting stuff being said about Ben Rich and what he said while he was at Lockheed Martin. And they said that they're talking about that technology in a 1988 air show, having that technology. And the quotes from Ben Rich were, I think, attributed about, we have the technology to take ET home. That was back in like 91 or the 80s. So they've had some, according to this, some pretty awesome fucking technology for a long time, and we ain't seeing shit. We're still driving around I can imagine in fire cars. Where our cars are powered by fire and little tiny explosions.
That's true.
Explosion car.
Yeah, great. Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Let's blow up dinosaur juice.
Yes,
pretty much.
It's kind of ridiculous. I mean, this goes into some Tesla technology and what happened with Tesla, what he was developing, and why it was kept secret. It goes also into some free energy stuff that we talked about a few episodes ago with the guy in Columbus, Ohio, who created a car that ran off of water. So this movie touches on a lot of different subjects, and it makes a good case that we're being hoodwinked. We're being hornswoggled. God damn it!
You don't say.
Yes, we are.
I refuse.
We're being lied to a little bit.
I refuse to believe that.
Now, these next 2 segments, this gets into Project Bluebeam. I don't think they call it as such, but this is.
Well, remind us what Bluebeam is again. So I'm not as up on the UFO thing.
Project Bluebeam would be a fake alien invasion. Basically, the U.S. government or any other government would create vehicles that look like UFOs, and then they would act like they would be coming into the airspace of the United States and attacking or abducting people to cause fear and panic within the population.
Okay.
2, elicit a policy response or public outcry.
Mm-hmm. That's what you want.
That's what you need.
Mm-hmm.
And here is the first one right here.
They could pull it off. They could definitely pull it off. Right now, they have the technology to mimic the form, fit, and function of extraterrestrial UFOs. They have the technology, absolutely. It's seamless, and you can never tell the difference. If they do have a false flag invasion, they're going to use one of these. This is the Hudson Valley Boomerang. This is 1982 to 1989. Over 25,000 eyewitnesses reported this craft. They can use the saucers, the cigars, the pyramids, the triangles as a united coalition, and that's how they're going to do it. We're talking about 150 to 172 feet across for the wingspan, which is the identical wingspan of the B-2 stealth bomber. So the question we need to ask is, was some of that $22.4 billion used on the B-2 poured into this program? It's the exact same time frame. When they power up and when they accelerate, it looks like a spark off a grinding wheel, and you could never know the difference. So if they wanted to hoax an alien invasion, they could do it, and they could do it in a way that's 100% believable.
That's pretty interesting. So parallel projects are talking about while they're building conventional bombers, not even like the B-2. I mean, it's not, at the time, it wasn't conventional because it had stealth technology, but they're funneling some of that money to a very similar looking craft, but with a different propulsion system.
So have we just not had an instance where we'd have to use this technology yet publicly, or maybe it's being used right now?
I honestly don't know. Like, why wouldn't, if this is ace in the whole technology, why wouldn't you just use it and take out all your enemies? But at that point, you're making a lot of money off of being in constant war and constant conflict. So this money continues to pour into these programs, so everyone gets a fucking paycheck. It's welfare for the war machine.
Yeah.
You can't have free education and universal health care when you're building fucking UFOs.
Mm-hmm. Remember that
universal UFOs?
The Carol Rosen chick was always talking about Werner von Braun, talking about how they were going to make the fake alien invasion and all that stuff was coming after the Cold War. Remember that one? We talked about it on the show several times.
They go into that in this documentary as well. They talk about Werner von Braun and his warning. He saw this kind of deep state, this deep super secret kind of projects getting out of control and almost when you have this kind of technology in the hands of so few, it is a breakaway civilization. When you can just go and do whatever the hell you want and go to different planets and not tell anybody, you have a breakaway civilization. You have special access to knowledge of the universe and the solar system that the rest of the population doesn't. And so they're making unilateral decisions for almost our entire solar system and who they interact with. If there are other alien species, and they're making these deals, and we're not even part of this. Fuck! Where's Captain Kirk? Fuck!
So, do you remember this news article from this was 2007? Human race will split into 2 different species. I mean, to riff off of what you were just saying.
I do remember the headline. I don't remember exactly what it was about.
It's the human race will split into 2 different species: an attractive, intelligent, ruling elite, and an underclass of dim-witted, ugly, goblin-like creatures, according to a top scientist.
No!
Hey, they're making the argument that you're just saying now.
Breakaway civilization. Yeah. And
we're going to be like down here like chud babies.
Yeah, we will.
Eating rats and shit, and they're going to be flying around, banging in UFOs.
Yeah, I'll be forced to make money in some kind of like donkey show or something because I'm just trying to feed.
Lucky.
Yeah, I mean, because I have to feed my dog, and I'll be eating dog food, and my dog will be eating cat food. It's gonna be bad, people. I don't want that.
Nobody wants that.
No. I do have one. Well, I have a bunch of clips, but I think this is going to be the last one when it comes to what we're talking about right now, the movie Unacknowledged. Joe, you asked about alien penises and at least alien anatomy. It doesn't really go into penises, but in this one, this talks about this. It's the second part to the alien false flag, and this kind of goes into talking about what these beings possibly could be.
They started doing all kinds of psychological warfare entrainment of the public by staging hoaxed events such as cattle mutilations. Oh, it's a flying saucer who did that. It's a covert paramilitary program, human. So if you wanted to start indoctrinating people into a false threat from outer space that Werner von Braun warned us about, you would start staging events that look alien, but that are completely man-made, that are scary and scare the hell out of people.
UFO encounters are categorized into 4 groups. Close encounters of the 4th kind include people who claim to have been abducted by extraterrestrials. If you had a close encounter of the 4th kind and you are back, we're anxious to hear from you.
Inner stage left, you got these sort of anti-gravity devices with creatures that look like ETs that are actually man-made robotic systems. They're called programmed life forms. And you
hear that? Okay, programmed life forms. So that he's basically saying they're genetically engineered robots, which has always been a speculation about how these creatures could travel so far across light years. Well, they're made. They're basically biological robots. They're not real. They have no emotion.
a major theory about the Greys is that they're actually indeed these kind of bio-robots.
But he's saying, Dr. Greer is saying that they're actually made here by us as a way to create this psychological conditioning on us, the population. How bizarre. I'll continue on with this clip.
Robotic systems. They're called programmed life forms. And you start doing select interfaces with the public.
We did do that, yes. OSI did that. There was a special group out of the 7602nd Air Intel Wing at Fort Belvoir that came out and did that. They had these people that had maybe some sort of defects, anatomical defects that were brought in to fool people into thinking they're aliens. Yeah. I can't give you any specifics because the program is still classified, and they probably still doing it. I wouldn't doubt it. They were still doing it.
So this guy's saying they're bringing in people with defects to act like aliens so they can create these abduction scenarios so people are traumatized, so they'll tell the story so we believe in alien abduction. This seems so fantastical.
But it does go with the Mirage Men thing, where it's like, we want you to believe, we just don't want you to know what to believe, what the right things are to believe. This is like the hologram plane thing in the 9/11 conspiracy shit.
Yeah, so we don't even know. So these alien abductions, one, if they're real, are they even being done by aliens at this point? Or is it our own government? And so is the missing 411 part of this as well? Is the missing 411, are these abductions being perpetrated by fake aliens created by our own government? How insane is that?
That's a little, that's quite a theory.
Yes, it is quite a theory. And I think it's crazy enough to be true.
Well, that is Prune's law. I mean, the more outlandish and unlikely it is, the actually more likely it is to be true.
That is Prune's law. Thank you for reminding me of Prune's law. We need to bring back Prune's law more and more.
Like Occam's razor, but backwards.
Yes. It's bizarre. Like when you go down the rabbit hole this far, it's one thing to acknowledge and kind of believe in the possibility, aliens exist, and they might be here on Earth, and sure, I could see them wanting to do abductions and experiments on human beings. But then to go to the next step and say, oh, well, they're not really aliens, they're actually biological robots created by our own government to create panic and fear, so when there is an actual fake alien war, you'll be willing to fight it. It's so insane. But then if we keep having alien abductions occur over 50, 60 years now, how much experimenting do these aliens have to do? You'd figure they'd collect that DNA by now, everything they needed, but of course we don't know what they're doing. I don't know. Maybe they just want to tickle some balls and play with some bee-holes. I don't know. Maybe they're sick puppies.
Probably what it is.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
Some invented robots that just want to tickle balls.
Yeah. It's $1 billion robot ball tickler.
Be surprised how real it feels.
We have anti-gravity ball ticklers.
Anti-gravity ball ticklers.
Bee-hole touchers.
Yes.
Why not?
Oh, boy. Yeah. It's mind-boggling to really kind of consider stuff, and it's insane. But it's fun food for thought at a certain point, because you have to consider this kind of stuff. And I have clips here from like Podesta talking about this. I have stuff from the Canadian military talking about this, and how the scientists tried to undermine any sort of valid sighting of a UFO when Project Blue Book came out and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of information in this documentary. Highly recommend it. Go on Amazon, purchase it, and share it with your loved ones. And then create yourself your own alien and tickle some beeholes, please.
Mm-hmm. I think you...
All right. What are you saying there, Joe? I think what?
I said, I think you get to cash that check now for promoting their movie.
I should.
All $15.
Yeah. And then cash that one from Vladimir Putin too, would you?
Oh, sure. Thanks, Russia. Thank you, Russia. Oh, boy. Joe, what do you know? What do you got?
I've got everything. I got Bigfoot stuff, for Pete's sakes.
What?
I know.
It's bullshit.
Well, okay. Then
I don't know what I want to do. I think the Bigfoot thing might be better for the Saturday show, so we should tune into that. Okay. We do a show on Saturday, everybody. We do it around 11 or noon.